What is up, everybody? Thank you for checking out a new episode of the BarbacoaCore Podcast. I am your host, Patrick C. Huerta. Thank you again for checking out a new episode. This one is a solo episode, um, just because I want to get into the whole routine of putting out a new episode every Thursday. If you subscribe to the podcast, on iTunes or SoundCloud or Castbox, you'll be notified because usually I post them Wednesday night, but I don't shout them out until Thursday. Um, but you'll be the first to know if you do subscribe to those channels. So like, share, subscribe to whichever platform you use to listen to podcast. I didn't do a solo one last week because I did have a guest that was supposed to come on, and I was all set up in the studio or the room that I use to record the podcast. And then at the last minute, they had let me know that they weren't going to make it because they were sick or whatever. And I just didn't do one last week. But if that does happen again, I will go ahead and put out a new episode or a solo episode, um, just so I have an episode going out every Thursday. Um, just real quick, let me do the shout outs at the top. As always, shout out to CBDB. You can follow them on Instagram at mycbdb. Or you can check them out online at www.mycbdb.com. Right now, they have a promo code to get you 15% off of anything you purchase through the website. Use promo code TXMC. That's Tango X-Ray Mike Charlie. Use that promo code at mycbdb.com to get 15% off whatever items you get through that website. CBDB is a Texas hemp botanical alternative boutique and pop-up shop for all your CBDB needs in San Antonio, Houston, and Austin. So check them out. Use the promo code TXMC for 15% off. I also want to give a shout out to Uglyhead. Uglyhead, they allow us to use their music for the intro and outro for every episode. So giving them a shout out. The Uglyhead has released a new EP called the Disembodied EP. It is available for digital pre-order for $5. You could get that at www.uglyhead.bandcamp.com/album/disembodied. Again, that's for Uglyhead. And you can also follow them on Facebook. And I believe the website for them is uglyheadmusic.org. So you can check out their new Disembodied EP, or you could also check out their past catalog, especially The Garden. I play drums on that album, so check that one out. And you could get it off of Bandcamp. One more shout out for friends of the podcast. That's going to be for 10-4 Menudo y Más. That's 10-4 Menudo y Más. You can follow them on Facebook. They have a Facebook page, and they'll shout out whatever pop-up shop they have. They're also on Instagram, 10-4 Menudo y Más. So you'll be in the know of the next pop-up that they have going on. They sell menudo, pulled pork sandwiches, pozole. I think they're trying out new stuff every now and then. So you can follow them on Facebook to stay in the know for that. You can follow the Instagram podcast page at BarbacoaCore Podcast. On that page, that is where I repost any past guest or friends of the podcast, whatever they have going on. I like to repost their posts there. just as a way of saying thank you for them taking the time to come on the podcast, and just so I could continue to support and promote whatever it is they got going on. So the Instagram page for the podcast is at BarbacoaCore Podcast. Um, yeah, I also reactivated the Facebook page for the podcast. That's at BarbacoaCore Podcast. You can find that on Facebook. I don't use that too much, or I don't share too much on that, just because the whole Facebook algorithms. I really don't believe that they're showing all the posts. Because they do try to sell like the promote the pages like for $5, $10, $20, stuff like that, and I believe they only show things if you pay for them to be seen. I don't know if that's true. I just think that that's how it works. So I kind of like Instagram more, but I do still have the BarbacoaCore Facebook page. It's active now, so you can follow us on that. Um, and again, subscribe to the channels, the podcast channels. I also will start putting these on YouTube. I put the last episode with Anthony A. I put that one on YouTube. So now you can find the podcast on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Castbox. I think that's it. I mean, if you Google BarbacoaCore Podcast, you'll be able to find whichever different platforms, whichever you use. But for now on, these episodes will also be on YouTube, just so more people have a chance, opportunity to listen to the podcast, because not everybody uses the same platforms. So I'm trying to get to the users, through various channels, various platforms. So yeah. So I just want to talk. The next episode that I have booked will be March 13th. That's going to be with Rob Chavez of Rob's Metalworks. I reached out to him a couple weeks ago to see if he wanted to come on the podcast. He has some things coming up, some things in the work for the summer. And so we went back and forth to try to book a date. And we finally settled in on March 13th. That's when he was available, when I was available. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Just a brief history, I guess. I watched Rob's Own Works back in high school. That's how I found out about new bands or bands that were new to me. Rob would meet up with different bands that were touring through Texas, and he would meet up with them, do an interview with them, and then he would post the interview. Sometimes he would post music videos, and sometimes he would post live concert footage from the bands that he interviewed on his show. And it used to be a public access show on Channel 20, I believe, if I remember correctly. That came out like on Thursday or Friday, like at midnight or 11 o'clock. And he was doing that show for like 15 years or more. And he stopped doing it for a little bit, and then he picked it back up, starting a YouTube channel for Rob's Metalworks, which I think is better. It's getting to a larger audience, on their time rather than being on the public access channel at 11 o'clock on a Friday, or 11 p.m. on a Friday. So I'm pretty stoked to have him on. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Rob and Rob's Metalworks, and Rob's Metalworks actually influenced me to join up with an old music e-zine called samusicscene.net. For that website, I would do album reviews or show reviews, and I was even trying to get into interviewing bands, and I did get to interview some local bands. They were just done via email, just because of the whole scheduling and all that stuff, and it was just easier to email questions back and forth and then put it together to post up online. There was 2 times, because I was trying my best to link up with national acts. that were coming through Texas. Um, I would email record labels. I would email bands directly and stuff. And a lot of those emails they didn't I didn't get responses from, but I did get responses from Daniel Davison of Norma Jean. He was the drummer of Norma Jean at that time, and I got to conduct two interviews on two different tour stops when they came through San Antonio. A couple years apart, a couple months apart, or something like that. So that was fun. I really appreciate Daniel Davison of Norma Jean for doing that, for agreeing to do that, and then meeting up with me and allowing me to do the interview for samusicscene.net. And it was great too because Norma Jean was one of my favorite bands. Still to this day, their first album, Bless the Martyr, Kiss the Child, something like that. I think that's what it's called. Maybe I'm getting that mixed up. But that first album of Norma Jean is one of my top 10 all-time favorite albums. So getting the opportunity to meet up with Daniel Davison back then was pretty huge for me, and yeah. And then, so that was a while back. That was early 2000s that I was doing the samusicscene.net thing. And then even when I started this podcast, it was still I drew from the influences of Rob and Rob's Metalworks, and to continue that with this podcast as far as meeting new artists to help push, promote, and support whatever they had going on. So having the opportunity to speak with Rob Chavez on this podcast is pretty huge for me. So I'm looking forward to next week's episode. Hopefully it's going to be a good one. Hopefully it's one that you enjoy. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun, very informative, and it'll be great to actually get a chance to sit down with Rob Chavez and have him on the BarbacoaCore Podcast. So again, that's going to happen March 13th. So I'll be on the lookout for that. Of course, I'll be posting a bunch of stuff whenever that's out. Or you could subscribe to the platform channels or the YouTube channels, so you'll get notified as soon as that episode is available. What else is going on? Trying to get into the actual schedule for the podcast, take the podcast a little bit more seriously, just so it's worthwhile for the guests that I have come on. I want to stick to recording on Wednesday and then posting it up Wednesday night, and then shouting it out on social media on Thursday. With that, I also want to take that with doing stand-up comedy as well. I want to get a little bit more serious with that. I have been taking breaks every now and then, a few days, a few weeks, something like that. So I'm trying to get back into that groove to where it's more constant. Coming up on about a year since my first time going up at an open mic. It was last March, like towards the end of the month. The first time going up was at Martini Ranch when I did the PWA open mic, and been having a lot of fun doing that. I haven't really reached out to people to try to get booked on shows, so I'm gonna start doing that as well. I just wanted to get to a certain level where I felt more comfortable, more confident, just working on a few things here and there and trying to tweak it, make it the best. I know some people that, if they start in December, they'll start doing shows by February. I know a few people that have done that, and that's great. But I decided to do it a little bit different, just because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, I guess. Not really a perfectionist. That's a little bit much, but it's just something that I wanted to take time to make sure that I was doing the best that I could, getting the best at it before I started, taking on shows. So hopefully I'll have some more shows, or have shows to announce on these episodes. I did meet up with Joshua Cabaza at LOL. LOL had an open mic on Tuesdays. They do a showcase from 8 to 9, something like that. and then from 9 on, they have the open mics every Tuesday. Um, so I ran into Joshua Cabaza there, and he asked if I wanted to be a part of the show that they do at the Blind Tiger Comedy Club. That's in the basement of the Magic Time Machine. So yes, he said that they're doing a show on Sunday called Off the Cuff, and so it's like an improvised type of comedy show. I'm not quite sure how it works. I don't know if like the audience gives out topic ideas, or if you're given a topic idea and then you gotta work with that. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure how that works, but he asked me yesterday if I want to come out on Sunday and check it out. So I got that coming up. So hopefully that goes well. And again, like I said, I'm gonna try to start networking a little bit more, start reaching out to people, because there's always opportunities where people will put a post, I got a show, I have 2 spots, if there's anybody interested, and I've never responded to any of those yet, but I'm gonna start doing that now, start taking this a little bit more serious, because just doing the open mics, it's been a lot of fun, but I kind of want to start doing shows now and start building on that, and yeah, just having a little bit more fun with that. So yeah, and I mean, there's open mics, or you could do open mic, or you could catch open mic almost every day of the week. I know Monday, comedian Joey Smith, he started one out in the Converse shirts area. I believe the bar it's called Bar House. The place is called Bar House, and they started doing open mics on Monday there. Like I said, LOL does open mics on Tuesdays. There's also a new spot that Irma Linda Reese started. That is at the Elbow Room. It's a karaoke bar, but they open it up on Tuesdays at 7 for open mic comedy. So that's cool. That's out off of Perrin Bidle. So that's one that that's another one that you could catch on Tuesdays. It's either there at the Elbow Room or LOL. I think there's another variety mic on Tuesdays as well. I think it's at Sancho's. But yeah, and either way, I mean, like every day you could find an open mic to go attend or go and sign up and go up on stage if you ever want to try it. It is a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun doing it. And a lot of people that I've met a lot of people through these open mics, so that's been pretty cool. Most of my guests that I've had on the podcast have it's been through meeting them through these open mic stuff. So that's been a lot of fun. It's helped me with this podcast, and it's helped me learn more about the craft of stand-up comedy, I guess. So, what else? This is actually like the 3rd time I'm recording this. I recorded it the first time. I was trying it out on my phone, but that recording didn't come out too well. But I'm trying to remember all the topics, everything that I talked about on that one. But I don't know. I'm also working on the levels, trying to get the levels situated, just to get the sound quality the best it can be. For the podcast, for the listeners. So yeah, so that's why I'm doing this one as well. So that's it for this one. I just want to do a short episode just to kind of touch base about the plan for the podcast, making sure that I got an episode going out every week, since I do want this to be a weekly podcast, and give you a little information about the next episode, which is March 13th, with Rob Chavez of Rob's Metalworks. I'm pretty stoked about that. I've said that a few times already. And, yeah, and do the shout-outs. Again, CBDB, shout-out to Uglyhead, and shout-out to 10-4 Menudo y Mas. So, yeah, that's it for this week's episode. Very short solo episode. Um, I have spoken to a few people who are interested in the podcast. I just haven't set anything up yet, but I will have guests coming on from here on out. And if not, then I'll just put out a solo episode about whatever's going on at that time. But yeah, again, thank you very much for listening. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, or you could even subscribe to the YouTube channel that I have set up for this. Cool. That's it. See y'all next week.